Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, Kimberly Herman, and Braden Bausek are the general counsel and director of litigation at the Southeastern Legal Foundation, a constitutional and public interest law firm. Good piece over at the American Mind, AmericanMind.org, which is a good site, a publication of the Claremont Institute. Claremont Institute's book review periodical, also great. And they talk about the way to tackle this indoctrination of kids at the K through 12 level is through the courts. Yes, politically, I mean, it's not exclusive to the courts, but it certainly includes the courts, and there are a lot of issues that provide a basis to litigate. Free speech. When it comes to speaking, your kids have broad First Amendment protection both in and out of classroom, and they make the point that I've made many times that that important 1943 case, which not enough people appreciate, West Virginia v. Barnett, and one of the most important majority opinions that's ever been written in the history of our country, in the history of the court, by Justice Robert Jackson in that case. Schools were forbidden from making students take an oath in the form of a pledge of allegiance, salute the flag. No official can prescribe what shall be orthodox. And these lawyers argue equity curriculum is all about orthodoxy and oaths, just in service to a different ideal than loyalty to one's country. So if schools can't make students affirm a belief like the pledge or a flag salute, then they can't make them affirm a belief to the God of equity either. Important point. Equal protection, Brown v. Board, relevant precedents, the Civil Rights Act of 64 and Title VI, which applies to schools at the K through 12 level because they receive federal funding. So they're prohibited from treating individuals differently based on their race. Transparency laws, which we discussed a bit yesterday with the undoctrinated author, Bonnie.
Oh, Bonnie.
I can't remember her last name, but Undoctrinated was her book. She talked about that as well. She's the director of high school research, I guess, for FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. Transparency laws. Don't underestimate the potency of public records laws. Just knowing what is taught, or more importantly, how school districts make their decisions about what should be taught, might not stop the districts from teaching it, but transparency is a precursor to political change. And that's right. Transparency is not a panacea. It is not an end. It's a means to the end. Expose what's happening, then you have to act on what you've exposed. Exactly. So all these areas of potential litigation, substantive litigation, use of the courts to protect your kids' God-given constitutional rights and to ensure that your school, or at least to try to prevent your school from becoming just another indoctrination camp. Well, let's take this from the theoretical to the actual, because Gabrielle Clark is a mom who is doing just that, taking her son's school to court. We've talked to her before. We want to get an update on her case because that could have real precedential value if Miss Clark is successful. Gabrielle Clark is suing her son's school over critical race theory. She joins us again. Gabrielle, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me again. How are you?
Good. So you're out there in Nevada, and you're and just sort of refresh our recollection on the situation with your son's charter school. What happened? The decision to litigate, and then where that litigation stands.
Well, my son was attending a public charter school here in Las Vegas, and he was asked to complete assignments where he was to list his identities, his race, religion, socioeconomic status, sexual identity, gender identity, and disability. And then attach signifiers of oppressed or privilege to those identities. And quite a few of those identities would have put him as an as an oppressor, and he refused to be labeled as an oppressor. So we tried to get accommodations from the school. We were unsuccessful, and so I reached out to Dr. Elena Fishbein at No Left Turn in Education, and she helped us find legal counsel. And we filed our lawsuit in December. Since then, the school has relented on the class, on the requirement for the class, and they have allowed him to opt out of the class, expunged his record of the grade, and allowed him to graduate. And he is now attending university.
Wow.
And so, I mean, just to put a fine point on it, so your son is biracial, so fill out this privilege questionnaire, and then, you know, the white part of you is privileged and the black part of you is oppressed, and vice versa, or probably never vice versa, but that's essentially what it was, how ridiculous this exercise was. But it wasn't until you filed a complaint that the school reversed the mandate just for your son, but not necessarily for that class as part of the curriculum.
That's accurate. We were not going to relent, and we did not reach a settlement. So they felt like they had to, relent on this one point. But we're not stopping. We want to see this adjudicated because the damage has already been done. And my son lost out on quite a lot of his senior year that should have been fun, and quite frankly, college scholarship opportunities and things of that nature that he would have gotten.
And so this is interesting because, so you're saying, well, right. So just because my son is on his way, he's, moved on to the next level of education and he's on his way, doesn't mean that this is over. So you're saying you still are a harmed party, your son being the harmed party, and the harm was he was forced to salute, if you will, this equity class. He shouldn't have been forced to do it, and the remedy that is still available and outstanding is to eliminate that class and classes like it.
That is correct. We want to see this adjudicated because we're trying to make sure that this doesn't happen to any other children in the country for the next 100 years. There's no reason for children to be subjugated to this, to this nonsense. And every school and every school district needs to understand that parents are not going to tolerate this. If you're like me, there are things that can be done. There are things that can change how they're going to behave, whether they want to or not. There's all kinds of remedies happening across the country, legislation and petitioning the school boards and things like that. But the law is the law. And there's nothing that they can do if they don't like the decision. There's no way around it. There's no overturning it. So this I believe is the way forward for these kinds of cases. Lots of people have had this happen, and unfortunately, they're too afraid to speak up. But we're not going to stop.
Gabrielle, how has this situation and going through this process in the lawsuit changed you and changed your son?
Well, I don't think that it has changed us at all. We were the same people yesterday that we are today. We're firm in our belief of our country and of our rights. And we're not going to tolerate anybody trampling all over them. And so I want to continue to be an American citizen, and I want to continue to have my rights. And so I'm going to utilize those rights whenever I see fit. And this is one of those times.
Well, this is such a great story. Your family's so interesting, and part of it is an example for other families, not just in taking up the fight, but also in how doing so is not detrimental to your kids. Because I remember from the last time talking to you, your son is like doing fantastic, fantastic student, and so is your daughter. I mean, and what was she? She's musically talented in some way, right? Isn't she like an opera singer or something?
No, no, she's in
Oh,
ballet.
ballet,
Ballet.
ballet.
Well, still,
Yeah.
I knew she was an artist of some sort. Okay. So anyway, but the
maybe
point
she's
is,
a singing ballerina.
perhaps crossover artist. But so your kids are doing great. This is like a great learning moment for them as led by mom, but they're participating and they're still excelling in school and extracurriculars and all that stuff too.
Yes, we have a full life, and we're going to continue to have a full life, and nobody is going to stop us from living that life like we choose to because we're Americans.
I love it. I love it. The organization representing Gabrielle Clark and her family in this fight is No Left Turn, Elena Fishbein's organization. We've spoken with her. Fire is another good one I mentioned before. Bonnie Snyder was the author we had on yesterday, director of high school outreach, author of Undoctrinate. That's a book worth checking out. Fire is another resource, and there are many others too. The Southwestern Legal Foundation I mentioned at the outset; those two lawyers. So look forward to look forward to you finding success in your case, Gabrielle Clark, for the precedential value. And regardless of what happens, the example that you're providing, you and your family are providing, you and your kids are providing to families all over the country, is most awesome. So, Gabrielle Clark, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Everybody knows I love a good joke. So here we go. Knock, knock. Who's there? Not you if you don't use United Faith Mortgage to get a pre-approval letter. All right. Seriously, though, in this competitive real estate market, you need to have a pre-approval letter to get your dream home. And the real estate market has calmed down a little bit. Mortgage rates are still amazing. So now's the time to act. United Faith Mortgage is the company to go with. Why people like United Faith Mortgage? Well, they're not a